Hello, this is Darren Pulsifer, Chief Solution Architect of Public Sector at Intel, and welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology.
On today's episode, Digital Transformation in the Civilian Federal Government with special guest Mark Valcich. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, Darren. Thanks for having me today. Good to see you.
So Mark is our General Manager of Federal Civil. Is that right? Federal Civil? That sounds wrong.
Yeah, the federal civilian departments and agencies. Everything except for DoD and the intelligence community.
That's huge, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. My viewers as to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been here at Intel for 23 years, going on 24 years, and have had several jobs. Started in our cloud business, which we incorporated all the learnings into our Xeons, and now we've got the best cloud processors out there. And I worked in IT for about 4 or 5 years as a data analyst and an enterprise architect before getting back into sales, which is where I was before joining Intel. I joined our reseller channel organization and led our federal channel efforts for a couple of years before swapping jobs with one of my counterparts, Dave Everard, and taking on the civilian account executive job, and did that for about 16 years up till last year when I began managing the team, calling on the federal civilian government, which includes federal healthcare, right? The VA, HHS, and DHA. It includes the space and energy accounts, NASA and the Department of Energy, and also law enforcement, DHS, DOJ, and the State Department diplomacy mission, as well as the citizen services accounts. So post office, treasury, transportation, and several other departments and agencies within U.S. federal government.
That's a huge job, Mark.
Yeah, it's exciting. Let me tell you, lots of opportunity to help our government agencies understand the value of new technology and to embrace that to help them accelerate their mission and get better time to mission insights, as well as providing the IT utilities that the departments need to run on, right? Email and office applications and other enterprise apps.
Kind of what we would call the mundane type of things, but the things that keep everything running, right?
They do. And let me tell you, if email's not running, that creates a major problem for a lot of mission critical agencies like FEMA, right? I mean, they use, and we all do, we use that tool to run our business to some extent or to different extents. And that those utilities need to be up and running 24/7, 365.
So, all right. So Mark, because you have such a broad view of our federal government, which you do, right? Because you cover so many different agencies. What kind of trends are you seeing over the past, let's say the past 3 or 4 years? What trends have you seen over that time? Kind of a broad brush across everything.
Yeah, so federal agencies are in the midst of a significant digital transformation, and they've got the formidable task of continuously delivering on large-scale operational goals and initiatives in environments with ever-changing conditions and requirements. So, they've got to continue flying the plane and change the wheels and change the engines and change the frame, and transform is probably a better word to improve the way that they're able to deliver their services to their constituents, right, like citizens, and to provide a customer experience. So customer experience has been a big focus. As a matter of fact, I just flew back from out of country, and my plane was delayed, and I was waiting in the airport, and someone said to me, "Oh, have you seen the new Customs and Border Protection mobile passport application?" I said, "What? What is that?"
Oh, I've used that. That's super cool.
So I downloaded it sitting in the airport. And when we hit the ground in Houston, I was uploading my passport, entering the names, and filling out that old paper form that you had to do by hand.
Oh, yeah.
And then very tight connection. And guess what? We got to cut the line. And we went to a very short line. and got through customs in about 5 minutes thanks to that new
So, Mark, don't tell
transformation.
everyone. I don't want everyone to be in the short line
Keep
with
that
me,
a
right?
secret. Shh.
That's right. No, that's a very good use case. I've seen similar things here
Yep.
in California with the DMV,
Hmm.
and I think COVID kind of forced the hand. Have you seen COVID
Yes.
have a huge effect on the civilian side of federal government as well?
Yeah, I think COVID, just like Pat Gelsinger says at Intel, it took 10 years of innovation and collapsed it down to 1 or 2 years, right? And we're seeing similar things within our federal agencies. Another example is, guess what? My passport was going to expire and needed to get it renewed. And I thought to myself, oh no, now I got to schedule time. I got to go get a picture taken at a pharmacy. I got to go to the post office. Well, I went to their website and they had this new beta version of renewing your passport online. Shrunk the time required down to minutes. Didn't even need to leave my home. And that, is a
That's
result
incredible.
probably of, trying
Of
to
COVID,
avoid,
right? Yeah.
yeah, trying to avoid having to interact with people and do things more automatically using systems that are available to us through our, Intel based PC.
So do you think that well, let's go back. COVID accelerated a lot of things. Did it expose anything in doing that as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, specifically things like VPN connections, right? The utilities that IT provided were sufficient for occasional work from home, but they needed to be more robust and be able to support the capacity needed with everybody working remotely. And then also security users, right? So there are intelligence analysts within the civilian government, and there were issues with them being able to work remotely, which have actually been satisfied with some new capabilities that leverage software and hardware security and enable a robust, secure connection that is CSFC capable. So yeah, it exposed some gaps. A couple of those I mentioned, and then steps that we're putting in place to actually address those gaps.
So do you think we've overcome a lot of those gaps from the initial? I remember when COVID hit, it was like spend as much money as you can to keep the business going or to keep the service going or whatever the case was, right? I mean, we did everything we possibly could. Now we're kind of in this lull, right? Do we still see innovation happening as fast? Has it slowed way down and now we're just put the bureaucracy back in and slow everything down? Where do you see things going?
Yeah, I would definitely say that my observation is that innovation has continued, and that's being driven by executive orders. Executive order around cybersecurity is one of them that is driving continued innovation around cybersecurity and secure supply chain. There's also a big drive to improve customer experience.
So let's talk about innovation then. If organizations, agencies are being more innovative, where are they being innovative? Where are they headed? Right? Because if we need to be in front of that, right, to help them and guide them along to this innovation. So where are those areas that you see innovation happening?
Yeah, there's a great demand for, first it was called Cloud First, and now we have Cloud Smart within the US federal government that persists. And continuing to see innovation and actually embracing Cloud Smart in that cloud isn't a place that you go. It's a architecture that you embrace and allows you to take advantage of a lot of the economies of scale that are available. And that could be done in a multi-hybrid cloud world. So it could be done on-prem, it could be done off-prem. And what we see is continuing to have to communicate and educate folks on what is the right performance, what is the right security, what is the right cost model in trying to make decision on where you put a workload. um, and implementing those cloud technologies that allow you to move your workloads, with ease between cloud providers and between your on-prem system and the off-prem system as well.
When you brought that up, it reminded me of you and I going to what was it, Department of Homeland Security,
Yes,
and in that awful building where you get lost really easily. I can't remember the name. Was it the Roosevelt Building or something like that, or
it's the GSA building
the
down on
GSA
7th and
building?
D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We walked in there and confused where we were. I was confused. You knew your way around. And we talked exactly about this. And this was what, 4 years ago? It was
Yes.
pre-COVID.
Yep.
And it's great to see people starting to adopt this multi-hybrid cloud and all of the aspects of it that you have to deal with: security, data management, all those sorts of things
Yep.
are real things that are happening now, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and that just shows that it takes time to architect change and to implement change, right? And it's a journey. It's something that doesn't happen in a quarter or sometimes even in a year. But you need a plan, you need an architecture, you need a plan, and you've got to move out on the plan and hit your milestones along the way. And that's what's these large scale digital transformation projects are extremely important. And you need to be able to measure yourself with some early successes on a multi-year journey, and we're starting to see some of those successes play out.
So I like that. So measure early successes instead of saying, "Oh, in 5 years we're going to have this big old huge thing." Have some early milestones that you can hit and check the box off and say, "Yeah, we're doing well." You
Exactly.
No, I like that. All right. So cloud is one of the big innovations. That's what I heard. What's another big innovation that you're seeing, or a big concern that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, some of the other latent needs that we're starting to see come up as needs is edge computing, and doing a better job at getting insights out of the information on the edge faster, as opposed to having to wait until there's a connection and you could do the back end data processing. Just move those inferencing models right out to the edge. You're still going to do some training and update the models on a regular basis, but put the power of the insights right out the edge into the operator's hands, right? And we see Homeland Security expressing those needs, as well as other agencies.
All right. So give me some idea, because we hear this inference at the edge. I even talk about it. Give me some practical use cases for that. What does that mean? Edge. I mean, is it a sensor sitting somewhere, or I mean, what? I mean, how profound or how big is the edge, or what does it include?
Yeah, good question. There's a there's a few examples that are still being worked on, so probably too early to talk about them. But in an essence, it's taking together multiple sensors, information, fusing them together, and being able to get insights out of two pieces of data. So if you think about a agricultural use case, having a water sensor monitor deployed within a farm setting in multiple locations will give you the data that you need in order to understand how much water to be applying in the fields, in the farms, as an example.
I like that one. One that came to my mind too was the U.S. Postal Service.
Hmm.
They have how many edge devices do they have? Every single vehicle has, and the post. I've noticed the
It
postal
does.
people carry around a device now. They said, "I just delivered this," right,
Yep.
and they
Yep. Yeah,
scan everything. That's incredible
that is a
information.
good that is a good example at the post office, and there are several use cases where they're actually using technology to move the mail through the mail plants, and to manage or automate their logistical supply chain, as well as all of the routing of the mail delivery trucks, and especially as the workforce, which is the baby boomer workforce today, is retiring, and there are a lot of mail delivery clerks that have the best optimized route up there in their head. And when they retire, how do you transfer that knowledge to the new person? And that's being done through automation and optimize mail delivery routes that are available on the edge device and are being modeled through backend systems to provide real time routes for the delivery of mail to save money on fuel, to save time, so that the mail clerk's not out delivering, past the dark. When the dark comes, they can get their work done during normal hours, quicker, more efficiently, and
When to take their smoke break.
yeah,
I've
lunch.
seen lunch and things like that.
Yeah.
I think this is really cool because you brought up another area that I'm starting to see as well, and that's automation.
Yep.
Automation, as you mentioned, it's a really important innovation that people are starting to
Yes.
take more advantage of. Like you said, because the work we're going to have a work shortage, and
Hmm.
we're already starting to have it. I mean, there already is a work shortage, and it's going to get even worse as the
Yep.
baby boomers retire.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and another automation example for you is have you ever gone to the grocery store and brought home flowers or fruit, and
yeah, yeah.
then a day or two later the fruit's bad, you got to throw it away, or the petals are falling off the flowers,
You just
just in a
scrape
couple
off the
days.
bad parts and eat the rest. Come on.
Well, there was an issue with how that produce and flowers was coming into the country and taking too much time to get inspected and
Oh, at the
processed
border,
at the
right?
border. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was addressed through an automation project. And instead of the inspectors going out with a clipboard and paper and checking containers, and then at the end of the day getting back to their computer terminal and entering the information and at processing, they went to a real-time digital application running on a Core V Pro tablet, and the inspectors were walking out now with that tablet and doing real-time inspection and clearing or processing of that produce and those flowers, and that resulted in them getting on those store shelves quicker. And therefore, your flowers now lasting longer when you get them home, and so is your produce. So, I
You
mean,
know that's really cool because that you just touched on edge, um, automation, and process reengineering, right? So
yep,
we're saying this is what really truly is a digital transformation, right?
yeah,
I'm getting rid of steps in the process. Very cool, very cool examples. What about security? What are you seeing in security? You mentioned earlier the executive order, the latest one that came out around software bombs and around cybersecurity. Are you is that the only forcing factor that's forcing security? Or are we seeing other things that are contributing to that?
yeah. I think the threats that we've seen over the past several years have resulted in the focus and the executive order. And this is an area where the federal government has prioritized for the past year the adoption of zero trust. And also the recent release of the National Cybersecurity Strategy, which urged agencies to implement zero trust in order to bolster cybersecurity against these constantly evolving threats. So, one way that Intel looks to help is by providing hardware security technology that works with the software security technology and provides a deeper, in-depth capability. One of the examples is the encryption of data in process, right? For years, we've been encrypting data in transit, we've been encrypting data at rest. Well, what happens when you have a bad actor on your system, which we've seen evidence of that happening
Yeah, we
quite a
have.
bit with all of these nefarious activities happening in the cyber world. Well, guess what? They could see that data as it's being processed. Well, you have the ability through confidential computing based on Intel's SGX software guard extensions to actually encrypt that data in process. So if the nefarious actor is looking at it, trying to read it, guess what? They can't see it because it's all encrypted, right? So these are ways where, number one, the threat landscape is continuing to evolve. The bad actors are continuously innovating, right? This isn't just about enterprises and governments innovating. This is about the criminals innovating too, and you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
keep up.
absolutely.
Otherwise, they're going to get ahead, and we're going to continue to see issues and threats and exploits in the environment.
I noticed there was a press release by Joe Biden, President Biden, beginning of March about the cybersecurity, and the number one issue he said was critical infrastructure protection.
Yep.
So in the federal civilian side government, who manages critical infrastructure, or is it managed by the states? Or I mean, who's looking over that over this whole 50? We're
Sure.
a weird country, right? Because
Yep.
we got 50 independent states, right? That
Yes. Yep.
like to do their own thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah. So
who's
you've got
managing that? Who's helping out with all that?
Yeah, so you've got state and local municipalities that manage parts of the critical infrastructure. You've got private companies like power companies that manage, portions of the power grid. And there's guidance being provided by Homeland Security, by the Critical Infrastructure CISA, by the CISA group within DHS, which is Critical Infrastructure Security Agency. Fairly new agency within DHS. It's been growing a lot, and they provide guidance on critical infrastructure, as well as the manufacturing sector. Right? Even Intel gets guidance from CISA and collaborates with DHS around cybersecurity. And then they also set the standards for what a secure system is, and what the specs of a secure system are, for all the agencies in the federal government, as well as state and local and tribes as well. So a lot of work being done by CISA. NIST is another important research agency. And then there's also the Office of Science and Technology within DHS that does research. NIST has been doing great work for several years, and there's examples of Intel working with NIST and the National Cyber Center, the NCCOE, the National Cyber Center, Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And we've been able to prove out reference architectures for various things. One of them, the more recent one is exciting, is SP 1800-34 A, B, and C, which demonstrates a way in a zero trust fashion to validate the integrity of the components within a system, CPU as well as other components. And this is important because cybersecurity isn't just focused on the security of what's running on the systems, but the security of you need to also focus on the security of the components that are in those systems, which is another attack vector, right?
So this goes into that secure supply chain concept, right? I
Correct.
need to know what I'm running my stuff on, right?
Yes.
All right, Mark. So tell me a little bit more about the secure supply chain. You mentioned a little bit that it's important. Give me where do we stand? Where do you think we stand with this as a country?
Yeah, I think, this is going back to COVID as well. I think, COVID exposed geopolitical risks with supply chain. And then on top of that, there are cybersecurity risks that have been identified based on geopolitical adversaries around the world. And that's really driving the need for a way to balance supply chain across geographies. For example, the semiconductor supply chain, more than 80% is manufactured in Asia. And less than, well, in the teens is manufactured here in the US. that is imbalanced, right? If there are geopolitical issues that are going to occur in Asia that prevent semiconductors from being exported, that's going to impact everything in our economy, and actually becomes an issue of industrial security and U.S. national security.
So it's the supply, right? So if our supply is cut off, we can't produce. That's a key aspect. That's why the CHIPS Act was so important
Right.
and getting the CHIPS Act passed, right?
Yep.
What about our what about our technology being produced in Asia that we're using? Is there any threat at all at malware or nefarious things being put into our products as they're coming back to us from other countries?
I'd
Is
say
that a
yes,
concern or
and I'd say that could happen anywhere that a product's manufactured, and
right? Yeah.
therefore, if you've got a way to verify the integrity of a supply chain component, that will provide you with a way to solve that issue. And that capability is available today. It's part of Intel's transparent supply chain. That's part of all of the Xeon server processors that we manufacture for cloud providers, as well as on-prem data centers, and it's part of all of our core vPro processors that are available on laptops and desktops.
So
Um,
you're telling me that Intel, I can see where all the components came from, and I can guarantee they haven't changed. Is that what I
yes,
just heard?
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's pretty slick. Now that's on the hardware side. Do I care about the software side? Probably. I know
Oh,
I do. That's why I
absolutely.
brought it up.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Both. Yeah, both are important. Both are absolutely important, and if you're looking at supply chain security, you need to look at both. You can't look at one. You need to look at both the software, the firmware, as well as the hardware. All have attack vectors, and all need to have the ability to provide a secure software bill of materials, as well as the ability to validate secure component verification device integrity, which is what we could do with transparent supply chain.
yeah, I know there's an executive order around software bill of materials as well.
Hmm.
By Q2, we need to start having that. Good news is Intel is adhering to that on our new processors coming out, including the software, the firmware, and other things coming out, which is really cool. In fact, I was just reading an article recently about there was this one open source component that's used in like 80% of all the software written in Node.js. Like everyone uses this thing,
Yep.
and it's written by one guy. Yeah, isn't that a little scary?
Oh my
And
goodness.
he said, "I'm tired of everyone making money off of me, so I want some money, or I'm going to hold this thing hostage."
Unbelievable.
And guess what? People ponied up money and gave him
Sure they
money.
did. Yep.
But that's another aspect of supply chain on the software side. I don't think we totally realize it. Open source is a good thing, but you got to know who's actually developing that open source. And is it a thriving community, or is it one or two guys? It used to be a thriving community. Maybe it's not anymore. So there's a lot of aspects to supply chain
A
that
good
we got to
point.
look at.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, all right, Mark, this has been wonderful. I think you've given some great insight into what's going on in the federal civilian government. Any last words for our listeners?
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, Darren. I appreciate the time, and just remember that Intel offers a host of hardware security technologies as well as transparent supply chain capabilities that are available, today, and that can be leveraged as part of your zero trust architecture. So appreciate the time, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and do something wonderful.